welcome to another unscripted video. And after last week's depressing one on the end of English Club, I'll do a more upbeat video on passive voice. Remember that everything I do is unscripted, so it's all coming from here. So you can see whether or not I'm a good teacher. Passive voice is used when the person talking or writing either doesn't know who the subject or actor who performed the action was, or doesn't care. It's really that simple. Don't know, don't care. Hey, somebody stole my bike. Yeah, I suppose it could have been aliens. So mostly we would say, hey, my bike has been stolen. So you can see that in this case, if we knew who the person was, we'd be kicking their ass. So instead, it's just a loss. Sometimes it's not really necessary to state because it's simply not important. For example, I was sent a refund check. Okay, well, most people without any sort of prompting would assume a tax refund, and with prompting would probably come up with the idea of some sort of purchase. Okay, I received a refund check for a product that I had bought, which did not work acceptably, and I returned. But in general, most listeners or readers, unless they have a personal stake in the issue, simply don't care. Or maybe it's already been introduced in the conversation. You know that bicycle I bought that was so terrible? Well, I returned it. And I have received a refund check, or a refund check has been sent to me because we want to highlight the importance of the check over me. Okay? So, that gets us into the second issue. Which object should be highlighted? Because there are two forms of the base passive voice structure. One puts the direct object in front, and the other one puts the indirect object in front. So we'll start with a simple example. I gave a book to him. So I, subject, gave, past simple, verb, a book, direct object. Okay, in this case, as I explained in the transitive video, the book is being changed by the action of giving. And to him, he is the receiver of the action. Okay, and as such, as the indirect object, he must be able to choose whether or not he can receive that action. Obviously, I cannot give a book to a table. I can put a book onto a table, but I can't say, hey, Mr. Table, have a book. Why, thank you, Jack. It's just not going to happen. Okay, this is not a Disney movie. So in a sentence with a direct object or an indirect object, which you wish to change over to passive voice, you have to decide which you want to stress, the direct object or the indirect object. Okay? So, if it was a particularly important book, like the book, okay, then we could say, the book was given to him by me. Okay? In most passive voice sentences, people don't usually say by me. Okay, unless it's particularly important. By me. Aren't I so super duper important? Why not just put me as president, eh? Okay, so, or if the person who received the object, the direct object, who is the indirect object, is more important, then we would say, he was given the book by me. Now you might have noticed that I say that the direct object or indirect object goes to the front of the sentence, takes the subject position, but is not the subject because the subject does the action. I've always despised how many books say that this is the new subject. It's not the new subject, okay? The subject does the action. It's the actor. The direct object or indirect object is either affected by the action or receives the action. If you put it at the front of the sentence, it doesn't change what happens. It just puts it at the front of the sentence, okay? So it is not the subject, is not the actor, okay? So, once again, I gave the book to him. I, subject, actor, doing the action. Gave is the action, past simple in this case. A book or the book, depending on if it's one book or a specific book. Direct object, it's being changed by the action of giving, by me, the actor, the subject, to him, the indirect object, somebody who is capable of receiving the book and not just simply an adverb of place, like putting the book on the table. So, all passive voice verbs must be transitive. Okay? So, if a verb is not transitive, it cannot affect a direct object, as you might have remembered from watching my transitive verb video. So, in the first case of passive voice, the one that's most common, putting the direct object in front, because not every sentence has an indirect object, okay? If I say, I broke the window, there's no indirect object to him, okay, or for him. It simply doesn't work. The window cannot choose to receive the action unless it's a particularly masochistic window. The common form is to put the direct object in front. Okay, so a book or the book, direct object, was given. So here we see to be, which is a helping verb for passive voice, was given. The main verb, give, as we heard gave in the past simple in the previous example, the standard structure, active voice, becomes a past participle or third conjugation. And then a book was given to him, okay, so the indirect object, and then, if necessary, include the subject, the actor, okay, by me, okay, if it's particularly important. It's usually more important than somebody else, okay, by Dave or whatever. So, it's put into prepositional phrase structure. Something was done by somebody. Now, if you want to stress the indirect object, then you would say he, indirect object in front, who receives the action, the receiver of the action, was given, once again. We're in the past simple, we have the helping verb to be for passive voice, and we have the past participle of give, given, third conjugation, as the main verb. Okay, he was given a book or the book, depending on if it's one book, a general book, or a specific book. Okay, so he was given a book by me. Once again, the subject or actor is put into a prepositional phrase if you deem it to be important. Okay, so that's the general structure. Okay, so passive voice always requires the use of the helping verb to be. Okay, now many students have problems because they don't want to combine to be with another to be, such as in the past or present continuous, which are the only continuous tenses that passive voice can be used in. It cannot be used in the future continuous. It cannot be used in any tense, past, present, or future, of the perfect continuous. But, once again, it's really common for people to use the present continuous particularly. So, for example, some road work is being done. Okay, So the road work is the direct object. It's what's being done by workers, probably. Okay. So and then you have the helping verb to be for the continuous. Okay, is, and then you have the helping verb for passive voice to be in the present participial form is being, so being, and then you have the main verb, in this case the past participle or third conjugation of do, done. So the road work is being done, and by workers, by a construction company, by some actor. Okay, quite often passive voice is used in this structure because once again it's an issue of not caring. Nobody really cares who's doing the work. Okay, just that it's being done. Okay, so one hopes because one pays taxes and one wants, well, in my case, sidewalks because I walk everywhere, but other people drive. Okay, honking their horns and polluting the environment. I'm sorry. No social messages in grammar videos. I won't tell anybody if you don't. So do not be afraid to use two to be's in a row. Okay, normally you cannot use being after to be in the continuous because it just doesn't make sense, because to be is a stative verb, so it's very strange to say somebody is being something. It's a very rare usage to show that somebody is acting abnormally. So, but here you're not using to be as a stative verb. You're using it simply as the helping verb for the passive voice. So that rule goes out the window. Okay? So, and you'll see this again in the causative structure, which uses to have as its helping verb. One structure of the causative is very similar to passive voice, and so students often get confused when using causative in the perfect. And unlike passive voice, causative can be used with every tense of every verb form. So in a way that gets to be a little more confusing. So I would suggest that you review passive voice before going on to causative structure. Quite often, I find that many of my students have not had much exposure to passive voice, which is unfortunate, because Russian speakers have a great deal of trouble with passive voice because so many verbs in Russian have the suffix sa, even when the verb itself is not transitive, as I talked about in the video on transitivity. So for them, что-нибудь случался, they want to say something was happened, but of course happen is not transitive. You cannot happen anything. You cannot lift it and say it happened. You cannot push it and say it happened. Okay, or I happened it. Okay, so Russian speakers do have this issue. In addition to verbs that are used in passive voice, which is just sort of overkill, like мне нравится что-нибудь. It's like saying something is liked by me. Okay, something is liked by me. It has my seal of approval. I mean, English speakers would find that to be very abnormal. Like, well, that's pretty great. I mean, is your name Bill Gates? I mean, are you so important? Something is liked by you. It just obviously seems a bit overbearing in English. So, Russian speakers, watch out when translating verbs that end in sa, because they're not always going to be passive voice. Quite often, either because the verb is intransitive, or because the situation is ridiculous, or because it's simply non-idiomatic. Because, for example, машина продается, which is literally the car is being sold, which is just not an idiomatic structure in English. In English would be the car is for sale. So, Russian speakers, pay attention to what verbs you're attempting to use in passive voice, because by my estimate, Russian uses passive voice structure, the sa structure, much, much more than English does. As I said, in English it has to be either an unknown subject or simply not important. Well, I hope this helps you. Enjoy.